Hey Rock Buddies, Papa here. Hope you guys are doing well. Grammy and I are down in Tampa, Florida, visiting our grandkids, but it's nap time, and so I have some time to work on my geology video here. And today's video is going to be about the Taconic orogeny, the Taconic mountain building event as it applies to the eastern United States from Virginia down to Georgia. And I hope that this video will be useful to you. If so, as usual, please subscribe, and thank you so much for everyone who has already subscribed. So, the Taconic mountain building event, here we go. Okay, the Taconic orogeny, also called the Taconian orogeny, occurred during the Ordovician period, which lasted from 500 million years ago to about 450 million years ago. And most of the hot stuff, the big action of the Taconic orogeny began about 470 million years ago. So what caused the Taconic mountain building event, the Taconic orogeny? Well, after Rodinia supercontinent rifted apart into a bunch of regular continents like we have today, something happened on the east side of Africa. Rifting happened, and that began to push Africa back toward us in the process of forming a new supercontinent, which would become the supercontinent Pangaea, which was our most recent supercontinent. Well, as Africa pushed closer to North America, all the ocean crust between Africa and North America got squinched and squashed, and eventually it broke, and one piece of the ocean crust dived down below another, giving rise to volcanic activity, island arc formation, and the Taconic orogeny. But before we dive into the Taconic, let's do a little bit of review on the rifting of Rodinia. Okay, Rock Buddies, you will remember from the video on the rifting of Rodinia this picture that shows how things looked right after Rodinia rifted as regards North America and the East Coast from Virginia down to Georgia. You probably will recall that the orangey color is the old continental basement rock, granite and granite gneiss, and it's also a part of the rifted hunk, which is the other orangey strip that's out into the ocean some there. You can also see, remember, the brown and red sections, which contain the brown being the rift basin sediments found in Great Smoky Mountains National Park and in other places, and the red represents igneous volcanic eruptions that in this case they contributed to the rift, but they did not form the main rift, and that's why we still see them today. The purple color, you will remember, is the post-rift passive margin sediments that accumulated on the edge of the sea right after the rift. The yellow color represents the rift to drift sequence that happened after the post-drift passive margin sediments were deposited, and this was when the edge of North America after rifting began to sink. And first you got a layer of sand that turned into sandstone. It's called the Chilhowee Formation in Georgia and North Carolina. Up further north it's called the Antietam Formation. And then a layer of mud, which turned into shale. And then on top of that, a layer of limey mud that turned into limestone. One of the interesting things about the Taconic orogeny is it happened differently in different places along the East Coast depending on where you were. And so I'm going to break it down into three sections. The first section I'll talk about is what happened from Georgia through southern North Carolina. Then I'm going to tell you about what happened in northern North Carolina. And then finally I'm going to tell you what happened in Virginia, and actually from Virginia north. Okay, so let's talk about what happened in Georgia and in southern North Carolina during the Taconic orogeny, which occurred during the Ordovician period, which was 500 million years ago to 450 million years ago. Most of the Taconic orogeny started up about 470 million years ago, plus or minus. Okay, this is what it looked like off the coast of Georgia and southern North Carolina. Here's the land crust of Georgia and southern North Carolina. Granite, nice. Here's ocean crust. The ocean crust is being pushed this way by Africa, which is way over here coming closer. The ocean crust breaks here about at the rifted hunk of basement, which is here, if you can see it, this kind of orangey color, or thereabouts. It broke right around in here somewhere. It could have been back further. It's subducted underneath the rifted hunk, and in the process created an volcanic island chain that ran along Georgia and southern North Carolina. It injected all this ocean crust, went down into the mantle where it got so hot it melted. That caused tremendous igneous pressure, resulting in plutons, igneous activity, and volcanic activity, with stratovolcanoes exploding here to create the island arc. Also, the subducting ocean crust that melted in the mantle pushed up into this purple region, which is, as you may remember, the post-rift passive margin sediments on the west side of the rifted hunk, and injected gold that it picked up way down here. It injected it into these sediments, which would become the Dahlonega gold belt, which runs through Georgia and up into southern North Carolina, where it stops. The ocean crust, when it was pushing this way, also shoved up all the post-rift passive margin sediments that were on the east side of the rifted hunk, pushed them up along with pieces of ocean crust and even pieces of upper mantle into this big pile of very mixed up sediments called a melange, or also called an accretionary wedge. Okay, so there you have it. And of course, here's the rift to drift sequence. Now, there's one more very important thing I need to show you about Georgia and southern North Carolina and the Taconic. When this island arc was made, this chain of volcanic islands was created, and all this material came up, it exerted weight down this way on the rifted hunk, which transferred all the way up into the mainland and pushed it way down. And so you got, this blue color is ocean, by the way, you got what we call a foreland basin. That's a shallow ocean area where ocean water flooded in, and it was very extensive. Let's look at how extensive this foreland basin was. Not only did it occur along Georgia and southern North Carolina, but it occurred all up and down the east coast here. And this is the pink shows the extent of it. It went all the way across to this volcanic island chain here that was being created, puffing out these volcanoes, stratovolcanoes, bringing up all kind of material to the surface, increasing the weight, and pushing down on the edge of the continent to form this foreland basin. Now let's go back to this, and I'm going to show you more about the foreland basin. Some people call it a forebasin. And the thing to remember about this forebasin is this is the forebasin in the side view. Obviously, this is it in the overhead view, the bird's eye view, the plan view. So the foreland basin has two parts. It has this deep part right where the island arc is pushing down, and it gets shallower as the flex down mainland crust flex back up. And so you get different kinds of sediments deposited here. In the deep part, they call that the foredeep, you get this very, very fine clay sediments deposited down in here. And that turns into a very black shale that has radioactive properties. On the other hand, here in these clear waters where no sediments are coming from over here, not even the very fine black shell material, you get coral reefs and shell creatures growing, and that produces a limey mud which creates limestone. And this happened in the entire foreland basin. And let's look at it from this view. This is the area close to the island arc where you're getting the dark mud, which is going to become black shale. And that marks the very beginning of a mountain building event, whenever it occurs. And then this pink area is the area of limestone, this more shallow area. Okay, so that's the Taconic orogeny in Georgia and southern North Carolina. Did this island arc, here's North Carolina. This island arc, same thing. Did it crash into the mainland during the Taconic? No. Not in Georgia and in North Carolina. Up further north there was crashing, but not here. The volcanic island chain was created, and then everything stopped. Now, so you may be saying, Papa, how come you know everything stopped and there was no crashing during Taconic orogeny from Georgia to southern North Carolina? Well, I'm going to show you why. Okay, the main reason we know that there was no crashing into the continent during Taconic orogeny from Georgia through southern North Carolina is because there are no erosion sediments whatsoever. From Virginia north, there are massive erosion sediments associated with the erosion of the Taconic mountains that did crash into the mainland during Taconic. And they filled up this foreland basin completely from Virginia north. And these sediments have several names. Up in here, they're called the Queenston Delta. And down in here in Virginia, West Virginia, they're also called the Queenston Delta. Huge amounts of mud and silt and sand and river conglomerate sediments flooded into this shallow foreland basin, filling it up as these mountains eroded down to sea level. That did not happen here. We don't have a Queenston Delta here. We have limestone, the foreland basin part, but not the Queenston Delta. That's a smoking gun clue. Now we're going to look at what happened in central and northern North Carolina during the Taconic orogeny. We are talking about the area that begins where the point of the red arrow is and goes north to the end of the northern edge of North Carolina. That squiggly line that the red arrow points to is the boundary between the state of North Carolina on the right and the state of Tennessee on the left. And that squiggly line follows the peaks of the Appalachian Mountains. Hey rock buddies, you guys will remember this picture, which is what happened right after Rodinia rifted. And you'll remember what all these sediments are. You've got the orange basement rock of the continent edge. You've got the orange color of the basement rock of the rifted hunk. You've got the purple on each side of the rifted hunk, which are the post-rift passive margin sediments. You have got the yellow, which is the rift-to-drift sediments, and you have got the little grayish and reddish squares at the edge of the continent, which represent the rift basins and the igneous activity associated with them. So let's talk about what happened in central and northern North Carolina during the Taconic orogeny. The answer is nothing. It remained as you see it right here. Here's a map that shows the geologic terrains of North Carolina. The red arrow once again points to the squiggly line that is the boundary line between North Carolina on the right and Tennessee on the left. When we think about the Taconic orogeny, we're thinking about the orange area, because that's the part of North Carolina that was on the edge of the continent at the time. Everything to the right came later. So when we look at the geologic map of this orange area, which we will call the Eastern Blue Ridge geologic province, we find several different kinds of formations, but we don't find island arc material. Let's look at what we do find. We do find 1.1 billion year old basement rock in the former edge of the continent and the rifted hunk. We also find alligator back formation and ash metamorphic suite, and these are the post-drift passive margin sediments on either side of the rifted hunk. We also find a lot of Devonian time period granite /granite-gneiss plutons. The Devonian was 400 million years ago to 350 million years ago, and that was when the Acadian orogeny occurred. That's the orogeny that comes after Taconic. So we know that those plutons were emplaced during the Acadian mountain building event or orogeny, and they were not there during the Taconic orogeny. And finally, we have windows where the post-drift passive margin sediments have eroded away, exposing older material like basement rock or the rift-to-drift sequence. So how come northern North Carolina did not have any Taconic volcanic island arc activity? Well, take a look at this, rock buddies. In this picture, inside the red circle, see how the land bulges out right there into the ocean? Well, back in Taconic times, this bulge was in southern Virginia, and they call it the Virginia Promontory. So that when the volcanic island chain approached the mainland, it hit against this promontory, excuse me, and that protected North Carolina from getting any kind of island arc, volcanic island arc there. Okay, buddies, now let's talk about what happened from Virginia north during the Taconic orogeny. Here we go. Okay, you guys probably recognize this picture, even though the colors are wacky, but the main thing to notice is inside the red circle, look at the subduction zone. The ocean crust is subducting to the right or east underneath the rifted hunk instead of to the left or west as it was for Georgia and southern North Carolina. That's a big difference, and I have to assume that because of that difference, the island arc ate up all that ocean crust between itself and the mainland and did crash into the mainland during Taconic orogeny. Okay, and here we have a U.S. Geological Service photo that shows the Taconic terrain actually tacked on. Taconic tacked on. Glued on, sutured on to the east coast of North America, where the huge Taconic mountains eroded into the northern part of the Appalachian Basin. And those deposits became the Queenston Delta. Okay, rock buddies, there you have it. The Taconic orogeny as it occurred between Georgia and Virginia in overview. So I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please subscribe. And this is Papa, wishing all my great rock buddies happy rock hunting. Papa out.